Sarah parked the car and took a breath before stepping out into the warm July air. The Hartwell estate looked exactly as it always did, perfectly arranged, coldly beautiful, like a photograph of a life rather than a life itself. Roses climbed the iron fence in careful rows. The fountain in the center of the circular driveway caught the afternoon sun and threw it back in pieces. Lily was already out of the car before Sarah could say a word, her yellow dress a bright flag as she ran toward the garden gate where a cluster of cousins were chasing each other through a sprinkler. Sarah watched her go, that small, fearless creature, and felt the familiar mix of pride and protectiveness that never quite settled into just one feeling. She gathered herself and walked in alone. The gathering was already in full swing. Lawn chairs dotted the garden in conversational clusters. Someone had set up a croquet set that no one was actually using. The smell of grilled meat drifted from somewhere behind the hedgerow, and a string quartet was playing something light and forgettable near the terrace steps. It looked like a magazine spread. It felt like one too, pretty and curated and slightly unreal. Diana was holding court near the drinks table, positioned exactly where she always positioned herself at these things, where she could see every entrance, greet every arrival, and establish without saying a word that this was her territory. She wore cream linen, pearl earrings, and the particular expression of a woman who has decided she is better than her surroundings, even when her surroundings are a manicured estate she personally owns. Her sister Margot stood to her left, laughing at something Diana had just said. Margot's daughter Elise stood to her right, laughing even harder, having apparently decided long ago that agreeing enthusiastically with Diana was the path of least resistance. Diana noticed Sarah coming and arranged her face into a smile. It was a specific kind of smile, the kind that reached the mouth and stopped there, like a door that opens just wide enough to confirm someone is home before closing again. "Sarah?" She offered her cheek. Sarah kissed the air beside it. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," Sarah said, and meant absolutely none of it, and said it so warmly that no one could have told the difference. Sarah hadn't always been quiet about who she was. There was a time, early in her career, when she wore her ambition openly, when she ran 5 miles before dawn, not just for fitness, but because she needed the world to know she could. When she scored top of her class at officer training and let herself feel proud about it out loud. When she believed that achievement, visible and undeniable, was its own protection. The army had taught her otherwise. Not by breaking that belief, but by refining it. Her second commanding officer, a woman named Colonel Patricia Rhodes, who had served 3 combat tours and still spoke in a voice barely above a conversational tone, had told her something that stayed. The most dangerous person in any room is the one no one has bothered to assess yet. Stay underestimated as long as you can afford to. Then don't. Sarah had taken that to heart in ways she hadn't entirely planned. She had met Marcus at a charity event in Washington during a rare weekend of leave. He was handsome and easy to talk to, a civil engineer with a good laugh and no interest whatsoever in impressing her with credentials. She had liked that. She had told him she worked in military administration, which was true. The way saying the ocean is wet is true, and he hadn't pressed, and somehow that had become a habit between them. Not a deception, exactly. More like a privacy. Her rank, her record, her commendations. 3 service medals, a meritorious service ribbon, a letter of appreciation from a 2-star general she kept in a manila folder in her desk drawer. None of it came up at dinner, or at holidays, or in the careful, polished world of the Hartwell. Family gatherings where the measure of a person was their address and their maiden name. She had told herself it didn't matter, that she knew who she was, and that was enough. But the truth, if she was honest in the quiet hours, was simpler and more complicated than that. She had kept herself small in that world because Marcus had never once thought to ask her to be larger. He loved her, she believed that, but he had slotted her into a shape, wife, mother, quiet presence, and she had let him, because some battles she had chosen not to fight. Lily had made her reconsider that choice entirely. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in early September, 3 weeks after the 4th of July gathering, on a day that had started ordinarily enough. School run, grocery store, the quiet domestic rhythm that Sarah moved through between deployments and desk duties like a woman fluent in two completely different languages. She heard it before she saw it. Lily's voice, coming through the front door ahead of her small body, carrying that particular quality of sound that every mother learns to recognize immediately. Not crying exactly, but the tight, controlled breathing of a child who has been holding tears in for a long time and has nearly run out of road. Sarah set down the bags and crouched to her daughter's level. Lily's eyes were red at the rims. Her chin was doing the thing it did when she was trying very hard to be brave, trembling slightly at the edges like a building in wind. Baby, what happened? It came out in pieces, the way children tell hard things, non-linearly, with long pauses, circling back. Grandma Diana had called that afternoon. Lily had answered the phone because she liked to, because Diana sometimes brought her chocolates, and Lily had not yet learned to read the difference between the version of her grandmother who brought chocolates and the version who used sweetness as a delivery mechanism for something else entirely. Diana had been talking to someone in the background, Margot, it sounded like, and hadn't realized Lily was still on the line when she said it. Marcus could have married anyone. Instead, he brought home some soldier's brat and her mother, who doesn't even know which fork to use. Lily had not fully understood all of it, but she had understood enough. She had understood soldier's brat. She had understood the tone. Children always understand the tone. Sarah stayed very still on the floor in front of her daughter. She kept her face calm and her voice steady, and she pulled Lily into her arms and held her until the trembling stopped. She said the right things. That says everything about her and nothing about you. You are loved. You are brilliant. You are exactly who you are supposed to be. But something had shifted behind Sarah's eyes. Something that had been patient for a very long time had quietly, finally, decided it was done being patient. The invitation had gone out 6 weeks earlier, under the letterhead of the Northeastern Military Charitable Foundation, a black tie gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel in Hartford, raising funds for veterans' family support programs. Sarah had been asked to attend, not as a guest, not as a spouse, but as the keynote dignitary. Her name on the program read exactly as it always read in professional contexts. Colonel Sarah Hartwell, U.S. Army, Commanding Officer, 3rd Support Brigade. Marcus had mentioned the event to his mother in passing. Diana, who considered herself a devoted supporter of charitable causes, provided they were sufficiently prestigious, had invited herself along with Margot and Elise. Marcus, caught between two worlds he had never quite reconciled, had said nothing to prepare her. Sarah had not asked him to. The ballroom of the Grand Meridian held 400 people that evening. Generals in full dress uniform, state senators and their aides, a 2-star who had written Sarah's last performance review and called her the most composed officer he had commanded in 30 years. Gold braid and service ribbons caught the chandelier light and threw it around the room in small, serious flashes. Diana arrived in a black evening gown and her best pearls, already performing the particular version of herself she reserved for rooms she considered important. She swept in with Margot and Elise flanking her, scanning the crowd with the practiced eye of a woman who assessed rooms by their social value, cataloging faces, uniforms, rank insignia she didn't know how to read. She found Marcus near the entrance and kissed his cheek. She looked around for Sarah. "Where is she?" she asked. "Parking the car, I suppose." And then the room changed. It didn't happen loudly. It happened the way significant things often happen. A shift in the air, a collective straightening, a murmur that moved through 400 people like wind through grass. Near the main entrance, a side door had opened, and from it walked a woman in army service uniform, dark and precise. Her silver oak leaf clusters replaced now by the eagle of a full colonel, her ribbons lined in 3 careful rows above her left breast pocket. The 2-star general near the podium turned first, then his aide. Then, in a ripple that moved outward from that point like rings on water, the room turned, and Diana Hartwell watched. Pearls at her throat and wine in her hand and color draining from her face. As every decorated officer in that ballroom, generals, commanders, decorated veterans, nodded, stepped aside, or simply stood a little straighter as Colonel Sarah Hartwell walked through the center of the room like she had always owned every room she had ever entered, because she had.